Have you ever thought that the most ordinary person could be hiding something crazy?
Yeah.
That's kind of the feeling I get from today's deep dive.
Interesting.
Two totally different stories we're going to look at from the My Favorite Murder podcast,
Okay.
which always finds these fascinating true crime stories.
Yeah, and these two stories are really something
Yeah.
because they show just how different people can be, you know?
Right.
The calculated cruelty of William Archer, the insulin killer,
Wow.
and then completely switching gears to Frederica Mandelbaum,
Okay.
who built a whole criminal empire in New York back in the 1800s.
I mean, two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah.
Wanting power and money,
Yeah,
but going about it completely different ways.
exactly.
So let's start with William Archer.
Okay.
It's just hard to believe that this regular guy had such a dark obsession with insulin.
You know what's really unsettling about this case is how everything came together.
Uh-huh.
I mean, his early dreams of becoming a doctor, his time working in a mental hospital,
Mhm.
and that fascination with insulin shock therapy,
Okay.
it all kind of mixed together to create this like perfect storm of criminal intent.
You mentioned insulin shock therapy.
Yeah,
That sounds pretty intense.
it was.
What exactly was that?
Well, back in the mid-20th century, it was this pretty controversial treatment
Uh-huh.
for mental illness.
Okay.
Doctors would actually put patients into comas
What?
by giving them huge doses of insulin.
Wow.
They thought somehow it could reset the brain's chemistry.
Ah.
And get this, Archer had actually worked in the insulin shock ward of a mental hospital.
Oh, wow.
So he saw firsthand how insulin could be therapeutic, but also deadly.
So he had a front row seat to the power of insulin,
Exactly.
both to heal and to harm.
Hmm.
Almost like his mind got fixated on the potential for harm.
You got it.
And then to make things worse, he starts experimenting with insulin on his coworkers,
I know, right?
convincing them to let him inject them
Unbelievable.
so they could know what it was like.
Can you imagine the audacity?
Yeah. It's like he was playing God,
Yeah,
testing how vulnerable people are.
definitely.
It wasn't just morbid curiosity.
Mhm.
This was a sign that he just didn't care about human life.
Right.
And sadly, his actions didn't stop at those experiments.
No, they didn't.
They got worse.
Much worse in 1947.
Okay.
His friend, William Jones Jr., got arrested for something serious.
Uh-huh.
And to help Jones get out of trouble, Archer cooked up this plan
What did he do?
to stage a fake car accident,
A fake car accident.
hurt Jones, and then use insulin
Oh, wow.
to make it look like a head injury.
So he could delay the trial and maybe even sway public opinion.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how his obsession with insulin became a weapon.
To get what he wanted.
Right.
But it wasn't just about helping his friend, was it?
No, not at all. There was money involved, too.
Of course.
Archer got Jones's family to give him a ton of money
Uh-huh.
to settle things out of court with the victim's family.
Right.
But guess what? He kept most of it. Just gave him a little bit and a used car.
Wow, what a betrayal.
It was.
So this wasn't some act of loyalty or something.
No.
This was him being totally dishonest
Yeah.
and wanting money.
driven by greed.
That's awful.
And you know what the scary part is?
Yeah.
That this plan actually worked.
Yeah.
And it made him even bolder,
So basically, he thought he could get away with anything.
especially since insulin was almost impossible to detect back then.
It's crazy that something so common could be used to kill without a trace.
It is.
So how did he keep using insulin to get what he wanted?
His methods just got more and more daring. He
Yeah.
went after wives for their life insurance money, even injected his own nephew with insulin
No way.
to take over the family business.
That's terrible.
It's a pattern of cruelty.
Yeah,
Each crime driven by greed and this need to control life and death.
it's chilling. Were the police totally in the dark about all this?
Yeah, pretty much.
Was there no way to detect insulin back then?
Not really. Back then, it was really hard to tell if someone had overdosed on insulin. The symptoms look like a lot of other conditions.
So he exploited that,
He did.
thinking he'd found a foolproof way to get rid of people and get away with it.
He thought he was invincible.
But even the smartest criminals slip up.
That's true.
How did his reign of terror finally end?
Well, a few things happened.
Okay.
This LAPD sergeant, Harry Fremont, was suspicious.
About what?
He didn't believe the official cause of death in one of Archer's murders.
Good for him.
He thought something was fishy and kept digging, even though his bosses weren't happy.
Wow.
And at the same time, forensic science was making some big leaps.
Like what?
New ways to find insulin in body fluids were being developed.
Interesting.
So those breakthroughs, plus Fremont's determination, finally led to Archer's arrest in 1958.
So he was convicted.
Yes,
Justice was served.
it was, but it wasn't easy.
But I bet his case had a huge impact beyond just putting him behind bars.
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Archer's crimes forced the medical world and the legal world to face the dangers of insulin misuse.
Okay,
And it pushed the development of better ways to detect it.
that makes sense.
And that changed forensic investigation forever.
It's a reminder that even things that seem harmless can be dangerous
Definitely.
if they're in the wrong hands.
That's for sure.
It really makes you think, could something like this happen today?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And one we should definitely explore. But before we do,
Okay.
let's completely change gears and dive into the world of Frederica Mandelbaum,
Okay.
a woman who built a criminal empire with charm smarts and maybe even a bit of motherly love. So Archer was all about control and secrecy.
Right.
But our next subject was totally different.
Oh.
She had this charm and this talent for spotting opportunities.
Interesting.
Picture New York City in the 1800s.
Okay.
A total mix of immigrants, people trying to make it big, and of course some shady characters.
Sounds about right.
And that's where Frederica Mandelbaum comes in. A German Jewish immigrant who became a big name.
Wow.
I've heard she wasn't just a criminal, she was like a legend.
What made her so interesting?
Well, for one, she was a woman in a man's world.
Right.
And not just surviving, but really thriving. She came to America with almost nothing, just a strong will to provide for her family.
So how did she get started?
She started small as a street vendor selling whatever she could.
Makes sense.
But her real brilliance came out during the Panic of 1857.
What happened then?
It was a huge economic crisis,
Oh, wow.
and she saw it as her chance to rise.
So like a lot of great entrepreneurs,
Exactly.
she saw opportunity in the middle of chaos
With so many people struggling, young people were turning to stealing.
to survive.
Yeah, and Mandelbaum became a kind of patron to these young thieves.
That's how she got the nickname Mother Mandelbaum.
That's right.
Okay, so she was buying their stolen stuff and selling it for a profit.
Right, classic fencing.
But what made her different from all the other fences in the city?
It wasn't just buying and selling, she created a whole system.
What do you mean?
She took care of these young thieves,
Okay.
encouraged them to see themselves as entrepreneurs,
Interesting.
and they became her loyal crew.
Wow.
She needed multiple warehouses to hold all the stolen goods.
This wasn't just a small operation.
Not at all.
This was serious organized crime.
Yeah.
How did she get away with it for so long?
She was a master at playing the game.
What do you mean?
She had connections with corrupt cops, judges,
No way.
even politicians from Tammany Hall,
Tammany Hall.
the group that basically ran New York City.
Wow.
She used bribes and favors to make sure her business ran smoothly.
So she was playing at the highest level.
She was.
Amazing how she did that, especially as a woman back then.
And it wasn't just about her own success.
No.
She actually looked for and trained women thieves,
Right.
encouraged them to break free from what society expected of them.
Yeah.
Some people even call her a kind of early feminist.
A feminist criminal mastermind?
Yeah. Pretty interesting, right?
Definitely. But even empires fall.
True.
How did Mother Mandelbaum's reign end?
Well, her success made some powerful enemies.
Like who?
A group of silk merchants were fed up with her undercutting their prices.
Okay.
They went to the district attorney, Peter Olney, who'd been trying to catch her for a while.
Yeah.
They brought in the big guns, the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Weren't they like the FBI of their time?
Yes.
So how did they catch her?
One of their detectives went undercover,
Wow.
pretending to be a silk trader to get into her inner circle.
That's risky.
It was.
Sounds like a spy movie.
While he was gaining her trust, other agents planted marked silk in a shop.
To trick her thieves.
You got it.
Yeah.
When she sold a bunch of that marked silk to the undercover detective, they finally had enough to arrest her.
They set her up.
They did.
So what happened to her after they arrested her?
Well, she was arrested with her son and her enforcer,
Oh,
but she made bail. And even though she was being watched, she escaped to Canada with her son.
She got away.
And since her crimes weren't extraditable, she lived the rest of her life there, a free woman.
She really slipped through their fingers.
A true escape artist.
What did she do in Canada?
Did she keep up her criminal activities? There are different stories about what happened to her.
Okay.
Some say she kept going with her criminal business, but on a smaller scale.
Uh-huh.
Others say she went straight and opened a hat shop.
A hat shop.
Yeah, a pretty big change from running a criminal network.
It's a pretty ironic ending for a woman who always seemed to be one step ahead.
It's a story that really makes you think.
Yeah.
She was a woman who beat the odds, built an empire in a world that wasn't made for her.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think about ambition opportunity
Right.
and where the line is between right and wrong.
She was definitely a product of her time,
Yeah.
but also a trailblazer in her own way.
It makes you wonder how someone like her would do in today's world.
That's a good question.
And could someone build a criminal empire like hers in this digital age?
Interesting. When you put these two people next to each other, it's just mind-blowing.
I know, right?
You've got William Archer, so cold and calculating,
Yeah.
driven by this need to control everything,
Yeah.
and obsessed with a deadly substance.
And then Frederica Mandelbaum,
Yeah,
so charismatic and clever,
right.
building her empire by empowering others and taking advantage of a corrupt system.
It makes you think, are there any similarities between them at all?
Good question.
Were they just products of their times?
Yeah.
Or do their stories tell us something deeper about human nature?
I think that's what's so fascinating about these cases.
Yeah.
They both wanted power and wealth, but went about it in totally opposite ways.
Right. Archer was all about working in the shadows, manipulating people.
Getting rid of anyone in his way to get what he wanted.
He was a predator,
Definitely.
taking advantage of vulnerable people and betraying their trust.
Yeah.
His crimes were just pure cruelty, driven by this creepy fascination with death.
And then you have Mandelbaum.
Yeah.
She built a whole network, almost a community, you could say.
Interesting.
She saw opportunity where others saw disaster.
Right.
And she knew how to bring people together, even if it was for illegal stuff.
She was definitely manipulative, too.
Oh, yeah.
But there was something bold about her operation.
True.
Daring. She wasn't afraid to challenge the way things were,
Yeah.
both in the criminal world and in society in general.
She didn't care about gender roles or what people expected of her. She became powerful in a world ruled by men.
That says a lot about her.
It does.
Her intelligence,
Yeah.
her resilience,
Mhm.
her ability to adapt and succeed in tough situations.
Absolutely.
I wonder, could someone like Archer have ever made it in Mandelbaum's world?
That's a good one.
Or was he meant to be this secretive puppet master?
I think Archer needed that control, that secrecy.
Yeah.
He had to be the one pulling the strings behind the scenes.
It's hard to imagine him in that chaotic, collaborative world that Mandelbaum created.
Right. He liked being the lone wolf,
Yeah.
the hidden hand causing all this tragedy. Mandelbaum, on the other hand, was all about connections.
Yeah?
She knew how to bring people together with different skills and make it work.
Right.
She was a leader, but she also knew how to delegate and empower others.
In a way, her crimes were more social,
Yeah.
woven into the city itself.
She worked within the system, used its flaws to her advantage.
But Archer worked outside the system,
Right.
trying to control it with fear and manipulation. His crimes were more personal, up close, and maybe even scarier because of that.
I think so.
So what does it all mean?
What can we learn from these two very different stories about crime and ambition? I think they remind us that people are capable of great good and great evil.
Yeah.
There are people like Archer who'll do anything to get what they want. They'll hurt innocent people and leave a path of destruction behind them.
And then there are people like Mandelbaum who live in this gray area. They take advantage of a flawed system for their own benefit.
Yeah.
But they also show loyalty and even a messed up kind of empowerment.
There's no easy answer to why people commit crimes.
Right.
It's a mix of individual psychology, social pressures, and opportunity.
That's why I love these deep dives.
You do?
They make us think about these complicated questions,
Yeah.
the things that influence our choices and the consequences that follow.
It makes you think about the mysteries of human nature
It does.
and the stories that show us the whole range of human experience.
That's a journey I'm always up for.
Me too.
Thanks for guiding us today.